Jessica Alstrom, spiritual teacher, medical intuitive, and quantum integration specialist, answers your spiritual questions and assists you through understanding your personal process while providing tools and techniques to move swiftly through the journey back to light.
Hello and welcome to the Transcendence Podcast. This is your host, Jessica Alstrom. And today I am going to do a podcast about the overthinking mind and moving ahead in life. I'm not sure what I'm going to call this yet. I will probably name it by the time I'm done with it, but I'm feeling really inspired to do this podcast this week just due to 4 or 5 different clients that have come through the office that I would like to see heal a little bit faster than the progress that we're making. So what I wanted to do is talk a little bit about, the overthinking mind and byproduct of brain-body connection. And I know last week I did a podcast on brain reentrainment, but I'm going to go a little bit deeper today into some science and some understanding. Especially, this is going to be a great podcast for people who have a hard time meditating and understanding how to kind of quiet their minds and talk to them a little bit about what's going on in the body when overthinking is happening and how food and environment and people and things affect your mental state of being, because we'd like to believe that on the spiritual journey it is all conscious and we are making it all up as we go. But we all know that sometimes out of nowhere, a depression can hit, or, our bodies just feel tired, or fatigue is kind of washing over us, or, we're having a hard time shut our minds down. And so this podcast is really for those people who feel like, they're really, really working to create the life of their dreams, but they're really having a hard time overcoming that active mind, or overcoming the past, or overcoming body issues or health issues. This is definitely the podcast for you. And so for how I'm going to start this is, I guess I have to tell a little bit of a story of about a few clients that have been coming in to me lately. And as an empath, it's one thing to be working with a client and feel everything they're feeling, but as a medical intuitive, one of the joys of my job is to be able to see right into the body and to take a look at how the hardwire is operating and how the nervous system is balancing and how the brain is communicating to the body through hormonal information, and to check on that digestive system and that reproductive system, and all of that information is something that I'm scanning when I'm working with you. But it's more of an overall, like, seeing if your vehicle is working properly rather than judging. Because a lot of times when people come into my office and they are coming back week after week after week, and nothing has changed, that's usually by week 3, I really start to integrate a lot more kind of systematic repair, because I would say that 90% of what I do is, I work with your higher self to confirm what you already know that you have not trusted within yourself. And so a lot of times when I'm giving you information, it's like, oh, I knew that, but you didn't trust yourself or believe in yourself. You needed your higher self to say it directly to you. And that's what I do, is I channel your higher self when I'm working with you. But when you're not getting your own messages, and when you're not getting the messages delivered by the messenger, which would be me, that's usually when we have to bypass systems and operating basis and really go into your hardware and help you heal the glitches, heal the circuits that are running out of alignments, work on that brain-body connection, and ultimately heal the nervous system. Now, most spiritual people have encountered a chiropractor, in their lifetime. And the reason why is because it's just more of a holistic way to, get the body back online. And that's all that's ever happening when you heal. I mean, the first thing that you have to understand is when you go see anyone, there is no one that is actually bypassing your free will and healing you for you. What's happening is there is someone who is interfering with a system that is out of alignment, that is helping break that circuit that's running and put your body back into ease and flow. So a chiropractor is, what they're actually doing is they're putting your body back into alignment and balance so that your body can turn back on and heal itself. That is what's happening. When things are in alignment, when the spine is in alignment, when the brain is in alignment, when the digestive system is online, when immunity is working, when your heart is working at its normal pace, then the body really can handle anything that comes its way. Now that's really serious. I'm telling you the truth. I don't care what your genetics say. I don't care what your ancestors have been through. If your body was balanced, emotionally, physically, and chemically, it could fight off any enemy. And in a higher perspective, if your body was balanced, it wouldn't even be a vibrational match to anything that was out of alignment. So you would be the one that didn't catch the cold in your house if your body was balanced, if your mind was balanced, okay? And if you're going to understand how the body falls out of balance, you have to understand the 3 different forms of trauma. There's 3 different forms of trauma that cause the brain, the body, and the soul to go out of alignment and stop talking together for expansion. And it starts to become like a bickering family within your brain, body, and soul connection. And if you've ever done any yoga training, you know that that's what it's all about. It's about bringing that mind, body, soul back into alignment and back into connection. And so what we do at Transcendence is no different. What we're doing is we're looking at where you're bickering with yourself or you're out of alignment with yourself, and we're seeing if it's a body system, if it's emotional system, if it's a chemical system, where are you out of alignment, and then basically help you put yourself back into alignment or back online or back in your initial program that you came here to facilitate. And so the 3 forms of trauma. The first form is physical trauma. Now, physical trauma can occur in the body through different ways. It could be through blunt force. It could be through repetitive misalignment, which means sitting at a desk for 6 hours a day or 4 hours a day where your spine begins to move in a different structure. Repetitive hitting, like driving, like someone who drives a truck every day is going to have physical, chronic, repetitive trauma. Someone who's been in car accidents, or someone who's dealing with scoliosis, or hips that are out of alignment. These are all physical traumas that have occurred through either repetitive motion or impact. Okay, so when you've had a surgery, that is a physical trauma that's happened to your body. You may not have felt your body being cut into, but your body sure felt that, and it is recording it into the subconscious. When you have chronic pain, that is a physical trauma. Your body's always having to endure pain, okay? So chronic headaches is a physical trauma. They say the average kid that is like 13 years old has fallen and hit their head at least 13,000 times. So, it's like a lot of little traumas can add up to a lot of misalignment in the body. And this isn't something to be concerned with. This is just fact, okay? So then that's physical trauma. That could be, crashing your bike, having an accident, tearing your Achilles heel, blowing your knee out in high school, hurting your shoulder, and then whatever, that trauma stays in the physical cellular structure, okay, until it is removed. And it can be removed through detox, through healing therapies, through numerous ways we can actually remove physical trauma from the body. The second form of trauma that the body takes on that creates imbalance in basically your ability to create and manifest your reality and heal your body is emotional trauma. Now, emotional trauma is obviously, shame, guilt, humiliation, fear, resentment. Those are usually the forms of emotional trauma that we have really heavy in our vibrational energy systems. This could be when you were humiliated in the 6th grade. This could be where you were abused. This could be any form of emotional, traumatic experience that your body and soul has experienced while you're on the planet. I talk about the 4 main soul wounds of a child before the age of 7, and that is if they weren't allowed to be authentic, if they weren't nurtured properly, if love was not in abundance and unconditional, if they were not able to be seen and heard properly. So there's a lot of different emotional traumas that can happen, that are a little bit more, easier for people to stomach than, say, something like emotional abuse, which we've probably all endured at some point, both victim and perpetrator. We've both probably played both sides of that. But, that's just, how emotional trauma happens. And, I have looked at someone who has lost a child, and I've looked at their brain patterns and cellular structure, and I've looked at someone who's been hit by a truck, and the brain damage is pretty much the same, because emotional trauma hurts the body, but so does emotional trauma. Okay, physical trauma hurts the body, but so does emotional trauma, big time. And it has a real effect on how the systems work. So when you're belittled, that is affecting your whole brain-body connection, and it is making your circuits go out of alignment. When you're constantly humiliated, that is a byproduct of not feeling safe to be yourself, not feeling free to be yourself, feeling like something is wrong with you, feeling judged, and that will actually create all sorts of imbalances in your brain and body. And a lot of times you'll end up being a sugar addict or a food addict or an introvert or some sort of, you'll look at a behavior or addiction that is linked with that particular humiliating event, because technically all emotional trauma, all physical trauma, and all chemical trauma is a form of PTSD. Post-traumatic stress disorder, which means once a trauma happens in the body, it does not leave until it's cleared. So we talked about physical trauma and emotional trauma. Let's talk about chemical trauma. So chemical trauma is going to be in the form of anything chemical that enters the body that is a toxin to the system. That could be a neurotoxin in a preservative that you eat that is in a processed food. That could be in a pesticide on your apple. That could be in the chemtrails that you're breathing in. That could be in, fluoride in your water. I mean, there's hundreds and hundreds of millions of basically toxins through chemicals that we're ingesting all the time. And so we have 3 forms of trauma that are constantly bombarding our emotional, physical, and etherical systems in our bodies. And it's our job to be aware enough of where we can heal what we already have going on there, and then align ourselves so that we are not a vibrational match to the constant toxins in our environment. And I'm going to show you how to do that in this podcast. But first I wanted to kind of go into a deeper explanation of why some people might not be healing out there and might not be even taking to, your Reiki sessions, or, you're not healing through your therapies. This is going to be kind of a deep cover of understanding of what is actually going on. And I will tell you, when people have all 3 of those traumas, physical, emotional, and chemical, and it is repetitive through a lifetime, which means they're constantly humiliated, and maybe they're eating processed foods and they've been in a few car accidents, then their system is so out of alignment that they are going to be a vibrational match to disease. Because in order to actually manifest a disease, your brain and body connection have to be so out of alignment, and your immune system has to be turned off so frequently that your immunity doesn't, it no longer serves you in the aspect of fighting off disease, and there is no, there's no healthy environment that the body is in connection with, and so disease can enter the body and manifest very quickly. And yes, this can be genetic, but it has to be activated genetically through trauma, meaning, if mom had breast cancer and your aunt had breast cancer, the only way that you would get breast cancer is if your body was out of alignment with itself, which means maybe you were in a toxic environment and they had a whole bunch of emotional trauma, and then that would open the door for disease, because trauma opens the door for disease. Trauma opens the door for pain, okay? And trauma also opens the door for more trauma, because trauma is very energetically active in your cellular memory. And because your cells are little tiny magnets, they bring forth more trauma, which means it's like you've heard of that person who has a car accident and then they've been in car accidents every year after that for the next 10 years, and they're just the person who gets in car accidents. They're a byproduct of law of attraction. That trauma is now speaking to the universe saying, I'm in pain, I'm a victim, I'm hurt, and therefore the universe has to keep bringing them that shock and that PTSD. And in order for you to know how your body is really talking to the universe, you have to understand the nervous system. And hopefully by this podcast, you'll have a pretty good understanding of the nervous system. And I'm going to give it to you at the 4th grade level because, I'm not sitting in a room full of doctors. Therefore, I'm going to talk to you as, my best friend at the grocery store today. So the nervous system is basically your central circuit system. Now, your brain is your central command system. Okay, so everything that enters environmentally or through thought first has to move into the brain, because the brain is the receiver of thought and it is a receiver of environmental stimulation. Okay, so if you walk into a bakery and you smell bread, your brain is going to receive that information and then tell the body what that means. Okay, if you have a thought, the brain is going to receive that thought and it is going to tell the body what you mean with that thought. It's going to give the meaning through hormones. So when women come to me and say, I have hormones out of balance, I say, no, you have thought out of balance, because thought has to come in first. The brain receives the thought. The brain then tells the nervous system through hormones what to do with that thought according to who it's been in the past. That's a big one. So the brain only knows what it's been and what you have been and what you have occurred and what it has recorded as its truth, and then it has to process everything through those filters. So by the time your nervous system gets a hold of something, your brain has already decided its meaning. Okay? So the meaning could be, the thought that comes in is, oh, my son is not home from school and he's 20 minutes late, and the brain takes that thought, process it through its central command system, remembers a news program it saw yesterday where, there's an epidemic of kids going missing, and now the brain is telling the nervous system to go into fight or flight because, something bad has horribly happened, okay? And now the nervous system is commanded through the hormonal activity and through electrical circuits, and it gives the whole body basically a command of what to do next. Okay, so this is how your body is working every time you have a thought. Take a breath, okay? Because now think about all the times you worry. What do you think worry is actually doing to your body? Because the brain doesn't know the difference between imagination and real. So every time you worry about something that could happen or has happened, the brain receives it as a now moment command, and it throws your system into fight or flight. Okay? Fight or flight is what causes overthinking. It causes huge stress in the body. And fight or flight is not designed to be turned on all the time. It is designed to turn on when there's danger and turn off when you are out of danger. But the modern human is constantly in fear of its environment, constantly in fear of its own mind, constantly in fear of its fellow humans, constantly in fear of the planet, constantly in fear of what's eating, and therefore the system is not able to go into balance and flow, repair, and detox on its own anymore. And that is what causes basically the brain and the body to start having a virus basically in its communication, and the nervous system moves into overload. And it's an overwhelmed system, and an overwhelmed system of worry creates an overwhelmed system of thinking. So if you are overthinking, if you cannot shut your mind down, if you cannot shut everything off and just be, then all you're dealing with is basically a nervous system that is completely overwhelmed. That's it. You're not crazy, you're not broken, there's nothing wrong with you. You've just been a byproduct of too much stress and too much overwhelm and too many thoughts and probably not enough of stress relief, not enough of self-nurturing time, not enough of, support in your environment, not enough feelings of safety, and all of these things will cause the brain to get overwhelmed and create all these neural pathways of, your life being a very, very scary place. And when your life is a scary place, then it's hard to make money, and it's hard to have friends, and it's hard to have healthy relationships, and it's really hard to have a healthy body when the brain believes it's not safe. Now, if this is you, if you're in chronic worry, or if you have a hard time staying in the present moment, then what I would recommend is that you not work on your relationships or anything outside of you. Is I would say, wow, this is a byproduct of my nervous system being completely out of alignment, and my brain is in overwhelm, and therefore too many neural pathways of worry and stress are running chronically, and I am unable to move into my imagination without logicking it. So another byproduct of a kind of an overwhelmed nervous system is heavy judgment, where you're constantly in judgment of yourself and others. I don't care if you're an indigo or not. You could be in judgment. You could be in constant worry. You could be in, thinking that you actually have real enemies on this planet and anything other than your own mind, because your mind is what basically creates reality. So there is no enemy outside of you except what the brain has told you to be afraid of. And the brain, we give the brain a bad rap, but the truth of it is the brain had to learn all of this somewhere. And that's when I talk about those 7-year cycles in all my podcasts, where, if you were this kid who came in really calm and chill, yet your mom was a chronic worrier and your dad was emotionally unavailable, there's going to be a lot of misdirection going on in how you believe and see the world. And so you're going to have to fill in the blanks. And sometimes worry is a safe space to be in, because if you're worried, then nobody could hurt you, which never works out. But that's usually how we become as kids when we are not allowed to be authentic. We become those worry warts, and then we become those worry parents, and then we become the worry, people. And worry and stress cause pain and illness and disease in the body, 100%, because the brain has to let the body know what's going on. But the brain decides and discerns what meaning to give things, which means if someone talks to you in a tone, and the brain has been talked to in that tone before where it wasn't safe, it will throw you into the category of you are an enemy when someone just said something with a similar tone from the past. That's emotional PTSD. Okay, that's why we deal so much PTSD here at Transcendence, is because if you are not where you want to be in your life, it is because there's a byproduct of, there's belief systems that are holding you back, and belief systems are neural pathways. That's why we use the brain tap system to teach the brain what wealth looks like, because if you haven't been raised with wealth, your brain body doesn't know what wealth is, and you can want all day long, but if your brain doesn't know what something means, it will never create the reality for you, because the brain is actually the magnetic force that's going to bring that reality forth to you. And you need to know that your nervous system is either in fight or flight, or it's in its heal, reboot, repair, and reset mode. So imagine that your nervous system, which is, that spinal fluid, it is the brain's tail that has all those fibers that reach out to every inch of your body, and that is like your phone line, okay? Your phone line to the body. So the brain gets freaked out and worried, tells the body it's freaked out and worried. The nervous system goes into fight or flight and stays in fight or flight, dumping a ton of adrenaline and cortisol through hormonal activity into your gut. It stops your immune system, it races your heart, and you end up really fatigued. So if you're a worrywart, then I can guarantee you're also extremely fatigued, because you have adrenal fatigue, and that makes you really, really tired, especially in the morning. You probably have a hard time getting up and getting out. And that's just a byproduct of over-worry. So what I want to do is I want to tell all the people that are out there that are really working on the podcasts and really trying to create new characters and really trying to live in the moment and really trying to be their authentic self. If you're having a hard time because you can't stop your racing mind, then don't think it's because you're not good enough to do this. Don't think it's that you can't manifest. Don't think that has anything to do with why you came to the planet, that you're not as good as someone else. You just have to be really responsible for, the body system that has been created out of default of listening to what is and listening to people around you and developing that fear mentality and developing that worry mentality. and give yourself a break, because I've had a couple of people come in the last week, and I'm looking at their nervous systems, and they're so out of balance, and they're so afraid that their soul is literally like 6 feet away from the body. Like I have to ground them. I've got to calm them down. We've got to do a meditation. We've got to do some breath work, and that could be 15 minutes of our session. And I know, we're going to do some great work, and then they're going to go back into their toxic environment, chemically, emotionally, or physically, and they're going to get re-stimulated. And so that's why, one of the reasons why I'm an advocate for this brain tap system, not because I want to make money or sell a device, but it is something that works in 5 different modalities to basically shift the nervous system and the brain back into alignment. It's about using light frequency. It's about using trigger point frequencies, working on the meridians to work for emotional release, beats and tones, which is your binaural waves that put your brain out of fight or flight into rest and repair. And also the affirmation and the hypnosis part of brain tap to actually reprogram the subconscious so that your brain can take meaning of things differently and see everything as a positive instead of a negative, and reintroduce, abundance to the body and to the mind, and reintroduce happiness to, that brain and nervous system, and eliminate pain in the body, and, all these things. But there's other things that you can do besides brain tap. You can do breath work. Breath work is really amazing. Every time you intentionally breathe, you're putting spirit or your soul back into the body. You're grounding your body. You're bringing yourself back into balance, okay? And that's important. Breath is really important. You'll notice if you're a worrywart, you're a shallow breather. And if you're a shallow breather, then the whole system is not being oxygenated. And if the system's not being oxygenated, your body thinks it's dying constantly. Okay? Because it needs oxygen to breathe. So breath work, important. Tones and sounds, sound therapy, light therapy, very, 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 very transcending for the body to heal very quickly. Holographic music, okay, that is high frequency tone and sound, that is almost like subliminal sound waves. That is something that we use here at Transcendence. And, affirmation and hypnosis, basically bypassing conscious thought and going into the subconscious where everything is reprogrammable because it's all been programmed, okay? Hemp oil, cannabis oil, all these things are amazing. Now, if you're intense, fight or flight, and you have some really great cannabis oil, and it's legal where you are in the world, and you have your hands on it, then I would recommend not ingesting it. If you have chronic fight or flight, it might be an overwhelm and you might get paranoid. So one of the things that I could recommend is that you put 3 to 4 drops of the oil in your belly button. Okay? This is what we do with newborns or children that are heavy toxed. We go ahead and introduce it to the belly button. The belly button is kind of like the highway to the soul, and your belly button will actually only absorb what you need, and it won't take on more than you need. It's almost like it's the enforcer of what the body needs versus ingesting maybe too much or too little, okay? So it'd start there, and that's going to help bring balance to the brain and body. It's also going to help lower resistance so that your mind can slow down, okay? Because spirit is very subtle, okay? Your higher self is quiet, subtle, patient, and it's the exact opposite of ego, which is loud, obnoxious, impatient, and, it's that ornery child. And your higher self is much more calm. And so, anything that we can do to get you back into communication with that higher version consciousness of yourself, the faster your body can heal. Because without source energy moving abundantly through the system, the kidneys can't work properly, the liver can't work, digestion can't happen. And this needs to all happen through the nervous system. Because the nervous system is how source energy flows through your body, okay? So you got a child that's overtired, you've seen what happens, right? There's no reaching them. They're just completely triggered, and what you need to do is calm their nervous system down. Same thing for you. Breathing, massage, energy massage. I love clean water, I love nature, I love breath work, I love, meditation. Those are kind of my go-to ways to get back into my higher self. Okay, so sometimes if I notice my ego is really loud because, say I ate white sugar yesterday or something, and so my ego flares up pretty quickly if I eat white sugar, and it gets louder than my higher self, I literally will use music, and I will use music to get my vibration back into alignment. I'll, listen to some loud music with my earbuds and just get myself back into my higher perspective and get back into my meditative state, and then usually I can detox. But the things that another thing chemically where I was talking about is chemicals in food is not just not in the chemicals of the food, it's the way they process food. Okay? And anything that's not food to your brain is a neurotoxin, just FYI. So if your body, is ingesting something and your mouth tells the brain what it is, the brain's like, I don't know what that is. It's a toxin. It's an enemy. And this is amazing because this is how allergies are. These are how allergies are formed. Just think about it. So the body is maybe under emotional duress. It's stressed out. Maybe it's got some pain somewhere, and then you eat an apple and it's got pesticides on it, and the body's blindsided because it's like, oh, apple. But by the time it reaches the brain, it sees the neurotoxin and it says, that's not an apple, that's an enemy. And now for the rest of your life, you're allergic to apples because now the brain associates everything with what it is. It's very logical. It's very much like a one-sided perspective the brain is. It's either right or it's wrong, okay? And it's either healthy or it's not healthy. It doesn't know that not all apples are poison now. This is how the whole peanut epidemic happened is, you have to understand that in our culture it's not, and this is going to be changing. This isn't anything to be afraid of, but our food is not manufactured to be safe. It's manufactured for consumption and for money, for profit. So especially in this country, everything is so mass produced that, and there's so many pesticides and so much, so much happening to the land that the lands never get to rebalance and remineralize. And so there's a lot of sometimes minerals missing in the ground, and there's a lot of toxins on the food. And so in between crops, a lot of times farmers will grow peanuts. And peanuts are really, really amazingly at absorbing, and they will absorb all the toxins that the wheat left behind or some other, type of something else they've grown. And I don't know if wheat is exactly what they're planting before that, but they will plant peanuts in between crops to absorb all the toxins so the ground can remineralize. And well, then whoever grew those peanuts wants to make money off those peanuts, and then they sell them for peanut butter. And those peanut butter is loaded with toxins now, and so that's how all these allergies are formed. But in order to get a real solid allergy, the body and the mind and the soul have to be in an emotional state of trauma. Okay, so you might have been hearing your parents fight, and you're feeling emotionally traumatized, and you walked outside and got stung by a bee, and then now you're allergic to the bee. So allergies don't just happen; they are created through trauma. Okay, so physical, emotional, or chemical. And the body has to be the body's defenses have to be down in order to get an allergy, okay? Which means that you have to be overly stressed. I have so many people who come to me and go, gosh, I've never had an allergy in my life, and I'm 35 and now I'm allergic to ragweed. And I'm like, yeah, because your stress level is out of control and your immunity is turned off. See, when you're stressed out, your immune system turns off, because it has to handle your worry, and it has to give your body adrenaline, and adrenaline is designed to move you into fight or flight, and it doesn't have the energy capability to give the immune system a bunch of energy and the body enough energy to run away from a predator. And the way the mind works is everything becomes a predator. The past becomes a predator, the future becomes a predator. The tone of your husband's voice becomes a predator. The check that you didn't get in the mail becomes a predator. Everything becomes an enemy. And what the system doesn't realize is that at the end of the day, the way the brain received the information was the only enemy. So what we got to do is we got to get our bodies calm. If our bodies are calm and stress-free, can you imagine how fast you could learn something? Could you imagine how fast this spiritual journey would be? Okay? It would be ridiculously fast. Because as soon as I was able to move my body out of fight or flight, which I was chronically in probably since the womb, probably since I was born, And that was why I couldn't learn, and that's why I couldn't manifest, is because my system was in chronic fight or flight, and everything was an enemy, even when I was trying to think positively. It wasn't until I broke my fight or flight pattern and moved my body back into heal that I started to actually connect with my higher self. Because everything else, you have to realize, fight or flight is where ego takes over. Ego is where you're edging out your higher self, edging out God, higher self. It's the same energy. So your higher self is only able to speak through you when you're calm, when you're focused in your heart space. When you're in your mind logicking everything and judging everything and deciding whether everything is right or wrong, there is no clarity of the you that is the bigger version of you there. And that's why, I have literally said to people who have come into my office, I can't see you for 3 weeks. And they'll be like, why? And I'll be like, because your nervous system is so out of alignment that you need to go home and start working on healing this with yourself. And then when you come back, we can do your soul work. We can do your manifestation work. We can do your intuitive training. But we can't do intuitive training when you're stuck in fear. If you're stuck in a grief cycle, if you're stuck in a shame and guilt cycle, if you're stuck in humiliation, your brain is not going to open up your intuition, because that's not safe. Your brain has to keep you safe at all costs. So if you've determined somewhere that in your life that your life is not safe, then you're going to have a real hard time with your spiritual journey. And, that's why I started to, first and foremost, use the brain tap for myself and do a lot of breath work and a lot of meditation. But then referred it to clients, and it was more of like, I didn't do it as a business. I did it as like, this person really needs help in calming themselves. And your first in understanding if your nervous system is out of alignment is if you can't meditate. If you're not calm enough to quiet yourself, if you have that racing mind at night and you're exhausted in the morning, your nervous system is blown out. And your nervous system is just a byproduct of the brain, the way the brain talks to the body. And so I hope this is making sense, because what I want to do is I want to give these people that are really struggling on their journey the ability to go, oh, this is something I can totally heal myself, Yes, chiropractic, myofascial release, energy work, Reiki. These are all fantastic ways to help your nervous system move back into alignment. Brain tap, breath work, clean eating, get off white sugar, stop eating processed foods. Processed food is a neurotoxin, okay? Diet soda is a neurotoxin. It's going to throw your body into fight or flight. It's going to cause your body to actually gain more weight, okay? So there's a lot of things that you have to understand about food, that just because it says no calories, it's a chemical warfare that's telling your brain that you're under attack and you're now susceptible to disease. See, the thing is you can't keep your vibration high if your nervous system is broke. You can't. Because high vibration is love, joy, passion, excitement, ecstasy, and unconditional loving. You're not in those places when you're stressed out and fearful. You're in the opposite. You're in the grief, shame, anger, frustration, resentment, humiliation, fear. You're in that vibration. And that's when a fight or flight body is chronic and it can't get out of fight or flight. It's hard to lose weight. Your thyroid is damaged. Your stomach is stressed out, so it cannot, balance its flora and fauna correctly. You're going to have digestive issues. You're going to have toxic liver, because the liver can't detoxify, especially if you're not breathing properly. That body connection. Dry brushing your body is one way that you can get your lymphatic system, which is containing all of your, old immunity and old emotional garbage. You can do dry brushing. These are all ways that you can help your nervous system move back into alignment. You can do positive affirmations. You can do guided meditations with binaural tones, which is something the brain tap does. You can do hypnosis. You can do past life regression. You can do childhood regression. These are all things that will get your body back into alignment. Not to mention probably 100 different things. Quantum healing, light healing, theta healing. These are all amazing things that you can do. But if you're going to try to use willpower, see, the thing is willpower, the brain will trump willpower all the time, because the brain is running in subconscious programming, neural pathways. That's subconscious programming. That's autopilot programming. Conscious thought cannot bypass the vastness of the subconscious mind. You can't. That's why it takes so long. I say it takes like 21 days to break a habit if you're using action, because you have to repetitively teach your brain a new program. Your brain has all of these programs from the past, and it's very hard to break them without some sort of sound, light, or energy manipulation, unless you're going to use action and really become that new version of yourself. People who are successful with like working out and losing weight are the people who get up, they don't take cheat days, they work out, they have a positive mindset, and it's really probably pretty hard for the first 3 weeks because they're having to use intense willpower over a pretty thick program. And those people are also the ones who, as soon as trauma or stress hit their life, they fall back out of their workout program. They fall back into the unhealthy eating. And so what we want to do is we want to change those neural pathways for good and heal the nervous system. And my advice is, if you're overthinking, then that's not you. That's a byproduct of your body. And you've got to change something immediately in your diet, and the way that and the people that you're around. Emotional toxicity comes from people. So if I'm going to ask you to give up white sugar, I'm going to ask you to give up that toxic friend, especially if you're going to work with me. You've got to love yourself enough to stop self-abusing yourself by putting yourself into situations that people are making you feel small and not valuable, because you are valuable, and you're here to change the world, and you're here to love yourself. And it's really hard to do that when you have, when you're being emotionally abused, or if you're in those one-sided relationships, or you're being gaslighted all the time, or, you're in a narcissistic empathic relationship. It's really, I say that relationships are way more toxic than any food you could eat. But this stage of the game, the way the energy is moving on the planet, we really have to be watching the food that we put in our body too, because it can make or break your vibration, I'm not saying that you have to go vegan or you have to eat raw. I'm saying that stay away from neurotoxins. Okay, so that's the food that's been processed by man over and over to the point where genetically it's no longer food. Don't microwave your food. That's genetically altering your food and adding radiation to it. It's like, that's a neurotoxin. People are neurotoxic. Pesticides neurotoxic. So drink clean water. Eat good food. Eat food that is, just a few ingredients, put together. It's like, you need to know what's in your food, and not to be scared of it, but just, it's one more tool in your toolbox to keep your vibration high and keep your immunities high. If you find yourself a chronic, researcher, or you have a hard time trusting yourself, that's just your nervous system, okay? That's not you. That's not something that that's not your personality. That's a byproduct of somewhere along the line that it wasn't safe to trust yourself, and now you need to research and have the opinions of 10 different doctors before you can make a choice. That's just your nervous system's in fight or flight about you not being able to trust your environment or trust yourself. Okay, so this particular podcast is just for the people who are really struggling to advance through the podcasts that I've given, or anybody else's information that are giving. It's like, how many times are you saying to yourself, I know this, but I don't know why I can't do it. Okay, so you have to realize that you are in a body, and your body has certain mechanisms, just like your car has to have gas and fuel, and it needs to be taken care of in order for it to drive. Your body is no different. And your nervous system is just how the non-physical and physical communicate together. How your brain and body communicate together. How does your soul and body communicate together? It's all through the brain and the nervous system. Receiver, perceiver, okay? It's receiving information, and then it's perceiving what it means by that, and then it's telling your body through hormones the meaning of that. So it's emotions, it's feelings, it's all dissected in that. And it's important that you guys love yourselves enough to make sure that you're not judging yourself and being an overthinker, or, oh gosh, I don't know why I can't meditate, and I'm just not that type of person, or I just can't see spirit. And you can see it all, you can hear it all, you can feel it all, you are it all, you are everything. But if your body is in limitation because it's been damaged through chronic fear, worry, judgment, shame, guilt, humiliation, or fear, then it's going to be running programs that are contradicting what you want in life. And that's all you need to do is go back to your baseline, your hardware, your central command system, your computer system, and rewire it and reboot it and put it back into, the frequency of love. Give it loving food, talk to it, tell your body you love it, tell your body what you're going to do before you do it, let your body know what's happening. Let your body what you're working on, and get to a place where you can stop doing and you can start being. Because when you start to be, that's when all the magic happens. That's where all your abundance is. That's where all of the miracles reside. When you're doing too much just to be doing it, then you are missing the moment and you're missing the higher connection of the information that's coming. And it's okay to talk back to your brain until you retrain it, because it doesn't have all the answers. It just is a byproduct of what it's learned so far. And it can learn whatever you give it, but you can't keep repeating the past and expect to have a different future. So I'm going to leave you guys with that today, but it was just kind of a impromptu podcast based on, 3 or 4 people that have been coming through my office that my heart goes out to them, that I really want success for them in their lives. And the only thing left to do is really get that nervous system repaired. And ever since we've been doing that this week, I have seen total increases in their potential, in their ability to be calm, in their ability to stop judging themselves, and their ability to love themselves just since we started doing this nervous system, brain, body work. So, hopefully this made sense. Hopefully it didn't go over your head. And, if you want more information about the Brain Tap, you can check us out on our website, www.transcendencekc.com. I got a ton of other podcasts on it, and feel free to reach out with questions in regards to any of this.
Thank you for joining Jessica on this transcending episode. Email us directly at jessicaalstrom@gmail.com with your questions and personal challenges you would like addressed on the show. And join us on next week's podcast. You are not alone, and remember, your higher self speaks to you through people, places, circumstances, and events.